Hi, welcome to Rental Sheets. This is Dave, the founder and developer of the Rental Sheets product, and this is a quick overview of the operating expense tracker. The operating expense tracker is used to track your operating expenses for your property. Your operating expenses will be ongoing expenses and costs that you spend to run, manage, and maintain your rental property, and these will be property taxes, property insurance, utilities, maintenance, and small repairs. The first column on the operating expense tracker is the date the expense was paid. It's important to input this date information so you can calculate the expenses paid in any given year. Once you input the date, you can input a brief description or memo of the expense that was paid. For example, our first operating expense was for purchasing a for rent sign to advertise the property. Next, you can select the expense type or category from the drop-down menu, which will be used to organize and categorize your expenses into separate expense categories. This drop-down menu is pre-built with a list of typical expense categories, but you can change and customize these expense categories on the category setup sheet. Once you select the expense type, you can also select the Schedule E category. Schedule E is an IRS tax form that is used to file rental income, and it is pre-built with these expense categories. Categorizing your Schedule E expenses will automatically fill in the Schedule E form to help you during the tax season. Once you select the Schedule E category, your final selection is the vendor that was paid for the service. Categorizing your expenses by vendor will help you track how much you've paid to each individual vendor for each year for 1099s during tax season. You can set up your vendor information on the vendor setup sheet, which will automatically feed over to the vendor drop-down list on the operating expense tracker. Once you select your categories, you can input the quantity and the amount of the expense paid. The quantity will typically be one because you're typically just going to be making one payment, but if you had multiple quantities, you could input a value other than one. The amount column is the amount of each payment. So once you input the quantity and the amount, the quantity is going to be multiplied by the amount to calculate your total expense amount for that item. The total operating expenses paid are then tracked at the top of the operating expense tracker. The operating expense tracker has some other cool features and functionalities that allow you to sort and filter the expense information as well. Along the table header, you will notice there are some drop-down arrows. These drop-down menus allow you to sort and filter your expense data by date, by category, or by vendor. To sort your expenses by date, simply click the drop-down arrow in the date column, which will give you options to reorder the expense items by date, or it will allow you to sort the expense data by a specific date range. You can also sort your expenses by each expense category or by vendor. So if you wanted to review all of your expenses paid to a particular vendor in 2017, you could sort the expense tracker to show that information. Once you input all of your operating expense information, this information feeds to the income statements and expense reports, so you can create professional accounting reports and provide it for your accountant for your annual taxes. If you have any additional questions at all about the operating expense tracker, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call.